Hold on. Okay.
Oh, I see it.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're live here today. Craig and Jonah 2.0 today. I had him here a minute ago, and now I lost him. We'll give him a chance to come back on. Jonah and I were chatting just a moment off before we started recording about today's topic, which is going to be Rerum Novarum. Looks like he switched to a different device. Let's try this.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome back, Jonah 2.0. So Jonah, why don't you, if you can, I know that you've been on the other podcast before, but tell us a little bit about yourself. If you want to tell us anything about yourself, it could be limited to your, your family, stuff like
yeah,
that.
I'm a cradle Catholic from a big family with a big family of my own now. I'm mid-30s and trying to scrape by. Not always hand to mouth, but usually somewhere in that range. And, we've always gotten by, but it's always been the tension between having enough money and having enough time with the family, keeping the other half happy and keeping the kids occupied. We homeschool too, so it's that much harder to run the house, with it full of kids.
What's your oldest? How old's your oldest?
He'll be 14 in a couple months.
Yeah. Do you live in the country or near the country then, or not?
Vermont is pretty much all pretty rural. We live on the edge of a village of 400, but bears and things. It's fairly wild, but we don't have like a large amount of land. We have 2 acres, so we don't have any really. We're not like homesteaders, but we have access to land.
Do you have room to? Is the weather there sufficient? Like you could garden if you wanted to garden, stuff like that.
Vermont's a good place to do gardening. Not the longest growing season, but very good, rainfall. And growing up, that was kind of, my dad was sort of more like you, where he was better at some of these like homesteading and stuff like that. He always raised animals. We had pretty big gardens, and they didn't really amount to. We weren't quite as hardcore as you, I don't think, how you were in the past, I guess, from what it sounded like. Hey, sweetie. And but he was good at it, and he kind of knew what he was doing. But it wasn't. He had a job at UPS, and he was gone a lot, so it wasn't the dream. The dream of going back to the land didn't ever really take off, and it was kind of a point of contention between my parents.
Oh, in which way? Your dad wanted to more than your mom, or vice versa?
Well, no, they both wanted to from the outset, and then couldn't. The job always competed with it, and so the lifestyle. The goal was got the kids over there. The goal was kind of little house on the prairie, and then the end, the result was sort of the predictable, chaotic, sort of semi-dysfunctional house with a dozen people in it.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it's not really. We could have had a homestead. We could have done those things. My parents had 10 acres. My grandfather had hundreds of acres, and my dad had the know-how. But it wasn't ever really. It was honestly easier. It was easier to go work and make money and just buy things that we needed. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was actually healthier. So that's sort of my thing, is that. Maybe maybe you could sell the whole job working outside the home thing, and I could try to defend the hard scrabble.
Well, okay. So my approach may surprise you just a little bit, in that. Well, let me give you a little bit of. I'll give you a little bit of my background. So my dad is the oldest. Um, he's not the oldest child. He's the third oldest, but he's the oldest boy of 15 kids, and grew up mostly impoverished. They were farmers, dairy farmers, and then I think my grandpa, early on, once the kids were able to start milking cows and doing the field work, went off and worked at a factory because you need money to, um, for them, my grandpa grew up, I think, on the tail end of the Depression, so them, you know, living off the land was. I mean, they still kind of did it on necessity, but the chance to go to town and work and make actual real money and have stuff was a luxury that they had long wanted. And then my dad, um, sort of predictably, and a lot of the kids didn't want anything to do with living in the country or farming because they spent their childhoods working their asses off while grandpa went off and worked at the factory. And then, you know, so that scenario, I think, is very common.
Yeah.
My and my dad, so I don't think my dad had a strong pull to go live in the country until he got to be, I think there's something about when guys get to be in their 40s, I think there's an itch to go do something a little different, maybe late 30s. And so we sort of started to have some, we like borrowed some land in the country and gardens and all that. And then, for me, it was, I think I had this nostalgic idea that, I think, sort of the way that a lot of trads look at liturgy and stuff like that. I kind of, the good old days, go back and live good old days, eating what you grow and sitting out on a nice summer evening, sipping sweet tea, looking over, the fruit of your labors. And I think a lot of people have that idea. So I tried to do that, when we started out, but we had a big family. Our family just kept growing, and what I found, and this is, I don't know that this is necessarily true anymore. This is why I think my position now is gonna be a little different. But 15, 20 years ago, it was really hard to raise a family and homestead and all that. I wasn't necessarily doing either one especially well, and my wife was unhappy. And kids, I'd work during the week, and I'd garden all day Saturday, and then Sunday I was tired and slept. And so my wife didn't like it. The kids didn't particularly enjoy it. And so for me, it was a combination of, you really didn't have much to show for it, other than an unhappy wife and just satisfied kids at the end of the week, is what my experience was. Now, that was because you had to work off the homestead if you wanted to make money. Now, I think with the internet, everything's different. I think all bets are off. I think it's possible, but to you have to be able to generate real income outside of homesteading, is, I think, is my point.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. That's kind of the story. It's that's like my grandparents came up from New Jersey with the same back to the land dream in the late '60s. On my
Hmm.
father's side, it was very similar, and on my mother's side, it was poor dairy farmers who were extremely poor, and that same real bitterness against the good old days were not the good old days, and
Exactly. Yeah.
thank God we don't have to do that anymore. But uh, I I have a feeling that I don't know what the answer is because it's too big. It's bigger than just. I mean, I can barely. I mean, I don't want to put myself down too much, but I can run things here and make things work. But as far as the entire economy and all that, it's a little complicated. And but it seems stacked against the family, is what I'm saying. Like, why? I mean, we were talking about the distributism in the in the Discord there, and I don't know a lot about how you go about achieving a situation where a family can be financially viable on its own. People, I think people used to have plenty of land in this country and a lot of know-how that we kind of lost both on average. And they still weren't able to do it because of prices, milk prices, or whatever they were making. They couldn't sustain. They needed to go outside the home for income, and I don't think that's. I'm not really. I don't think that's ideal. I think the goal should be a mother and a father at home with the family as much as possible. And yeah, with the internet, I'm not sure. You're the resourceful Catholic here, but I don't know how you really make money just from home very well. I had a job not too long ago as like a programming apprentice. My friend had a share in an app that he built as a computer programmer, but I wasn't good enough at it to stick with it. So that was my only stint of working from home. But I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think are good ways to make money with the internet?
Well, first of all, I guess I would say it's going to be difficult for someone who is not necessarily good academically and not really capable of doing things, what do I say, that are non-physical based. I mean, just kind of by definition, if your best skills in life are, let's say, operating machinery or doing things like that, it's going to be really tough because you almost by definition have to go work for someone else, and so far you can't run bulldozers from remotely from a computer, as far as I know, right? Um, but so I think a couple of things. So just yeah, so the other this weekend I was chatting with a couple online who they have a welding fabrication shop, and they make these little they're rocket stove type things for like cooking, grilling, and I mean really elaborate. And they have this huge social media presence. They're hilarious, by the way. I found them on TikTok, but they're literally like an hour south of me. So I'm going to go down and visit them sometime. And it looks like now it takes work and money to get there, but I think they're running a very good operation, shipping stuff out from what I think mounts to a homestead in the rural area here. So I think that's one thing. So like you'd have to be you'd be willing to do like direct. You got to do direct to consumer, and I think this is true even on the food end of things. There's a guy. There's a channel that I watch. He's near Ithaca, New York. I don't know how far that is from you. You're closer to Ithaca, New York than I am, but he has a similar trajectory. You might actually enjoy his channel. It's called Just a Few Acres Farm, I think is what it's called. He was he was an architect who went back to the land and lives off a farm, and they have a small herd of Dexter cattle and so they sell direct beef, and they were doing pork for a while, but now beef is their main. Beef and eggs, I think, are their main, and chickens. They raise like butcher chickens, but it's direct to consumer. So they go to a farmer's market once a week or maybe twice a week. So that's one way, but you have to be willing. You have to become a marketer and a salesman and all that, and like it or not, spend time off, going to farmers markets on Saturdays and stuff like that, because the only way you can get true value for your efforts is if you go sell directly to consumers, which is easier near a bigger city. It's harder if you're the more rural you are. Like for me, the closest market I would have is about 30 minutes from here if I wanted to do that. And more realistically, a true urban environment is a couple hours from me. So that's one thing. So like I said, if you could fabricate, I think the other thing too, I mean, I've actually encouraged my kids. I said, what if we bought a mini excavator or a decent sized skid steer and a dump truck and a flatbed or a dump wagon, and you start doing work that way. Now that's a high capital thing, and you have to, but um, with the internet, you can advertise. Like people can find you on social, so you'd have to be willing to develop some social media marketing skills that for a lot of us, we're just not naturally salesmen. I'm not naturally a salesman. So that's an option. I mean, I think there are different ways to do it, but the internet is essential for you to be able to market yourself, even if you're not, let's say, you're not just a remote worker for some company in California. You're actually making and selling stuff, but the internet is going to be essential to you finding that direct to consumer market that you need. That's my personal feeling. I mean, I think that's what I would tell my kids now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. Something sort of have a little sweatshop or something here with the kids slash, gigs. I've been doing, since I got done the programming job, I've been doing different things just to sort of get through until summer when I can get more, I don't know. I figured I'd do a couple cemeteries in the area, get a 0-turn mower and do some landscaping, because the kids are just barely getting old enough to kind of get into it with me. And that's kind of my goals. I clean like a doctor's office 2 nights a week, and they can come and help me do that because I'm contracting, and it's sort of, that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is just make money with the family as much as possible, and so even if I'm gone from the, not in the home with, the little ones, keeping the older ones occupied. And I know, like you said, there's sort of there's the factor of like, well, are they enjoying it? Like, do they want to pick weeds all day or hoe the rows? But I think doing it, making them work, and sort of working together, not just like, here, run the farm while I'm working at the factory. That's pretty, demoralizing, I think. But if you can work together and keep a good attitude, I have a feeling it's the best thing for the family. It's hard. It's hard financially to make it.
Well, I share that aspiration. I mean, I in no way do I not agree with that in theory. My experience in practice has been that it's easier said than done to get buy-in from the youngsters for stuff that doesn't clearly benefit them. I mean, it takes, it's like herding cats. Like it takes a lot of work and energy to teach the kids, to motivate them. There's a blend of yelling and threatening and bribing that goes into that you have to be um, prepared to do. And some kids are more receptive to that than others, and that's the struggle. I think that's the where you. I think that's. I never figured out how to dial that in and do it in a way that the kids, like, it wasn't just me threatening the kids and yelling at the kids to get them to do stuff, because then it's just it makes the family worse.
Right. And I think that's sort of, there are other aspects of family life that it reminds me of, because you're basically competing. Sorry, I'm moving around. I got to charge the phone here. I'm on the phone.
Here,
You're competing.
let me go. I'm gonna top off my coffee. You just
Okay.
get situated, and I'll go top off my coffee.
All right. Okay. So
Okay.
it's kind of like other things that we talk about sometimes in other channels, but you have people that they're going through there's something's being required, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't a culture of like, it's something very normal throughout history, working every day, whether it be, producing something, or, gardening, or just you go out and you toil. We have to toil for our stuff. But when the kids can compare their lot with, like, the neighbors, or just sort of knowing that it's not exactly it's not exactly normal, then there's this dissatisfaction that can arise, I think. Whereas if it was just sort of normal and expected, I think there's less, you don't really think about it, you just do it. I mean, I don't know if you ever, can you kids be quiet for a bit? I don't know if you ever watch these these YouTube videos of, like, third world countries where they're, like, squatting and making, like, I don't know, knives or whatever it is that they're doing. They're I don't they look, I know that they're toiling all the time. They don't have very much, but they're getting by, and they're I don't think they don't look like they're thinking about it that much. Like, they don't seem too dissatisfied, and they're pretty good at what they're doing. What we have now is men go out to work. They're probably getting pretty good at something that their family probably doesn't know much about. It's somewhat satisfying to be good at something, but it's totally divorced from the family generally. And then, so you have two lives. You go out and you work, and you have your work life and your work friends and your coworkers and your skill that you do there. Then you come home and it's like this, it's this double life. And then you can't really pass on a lot of those skills the way that sort of seems natural, and I really think that is a big problem. And the the Catholic teachings generally, it's not like we're not required to have large families, but the teachings of the church make that extremely likely. So I would rather say we should probably, like, who's wrong? Is it the world or is it the church? I'm saying, the system we have where men go out or both parents at this point is sort of the norm. That's something to fight against, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it other than.
Well, I think, well, you said a lot there, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure I know the answer. These are things that I've thought about a lot and tried to, really, pretty much from the time I was a teenager, I've tried to take a kind of a countercultural approach to life. Mostly, I would say in large part because of my Catholic faith, but also for me, the homesteading thing was as much a sort of an ethical idea that I thought I needed to live. I needed to live a life that is more sustainable, a lifestyle that isn't just consuming what the earth has, but being a life that other people can mimic, and my kids and my children's children could live a life and provide for their family, and the property, the earth that we've been entrusted with, can continue to, you know, provide for families into the future, was sort of the ethical, um, which is not really contrary to Catholic Church, but it's not. I don't consider that really a uniquely Catholic concept. I think a lot of people have that desire. The reason why people went off to the factories, quite frankly, is just because I think really until the last few years, really since COVID, when the our ability to think outside the box really changed. It's just you can just scale your efforts so much by working for someone else that has the building, someone else that has the client, someone else that has the equipment, the machinery, the insurance, all that kind of stuff. It's so that has all really been, I would say, equalized in many ways by the internet if you know what you're doing and you know how to use it. Um, as far as like getting the kids involved, what we deal with is a little bit of is a price of prosperity, right? I mean, the reason why those third world kids are at work and stuff is they may not eat tomorrow if they don't, right? Our kids are not, for the most part, are not worried about eating tomorrow if they
Right. We
don't
have
contribute
we
today.
have the opposite problem. We have obese kids who don't know how to work and don't want to
It-
do it.
and if we're being fair, you and I would be the same way if we were in that situation.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's a
I'm not
product of environment. The
right.
closest we have to what I think you're wanting here is the Amish, and I have the Amish near me. I deal with them regularly, and they have that. Those kids, from the moment they can hold a broom, they are producing for the family. But there's a few things you need to realize there. Number one, the father rules that household with an iron rod, and the parents rule the kids with an iron rod. And there are things that they do to their children that most of us, maybe not all of us, but most of us would feel uncomfortable doing. um, so that's a one thing. And then I think the other thing is have a community where this is reinforced. This is the norm for them, right? They are really not being exposed to my kids who, have the luxuries of, Game Boys and stuff like that. Now that doesn't mean those kids do, a lot of those do flee when they get to be a teenager because they've seen enough to know that sounds a lot better than what I deal with. But it's part of their culture, but there are I would say distasteful parts of that culture
What do you
that
you mean
most
they're like really extreme with the corporal punishment? Like
I would say that. And I think now this, you and I might disagree here, but I think the women are very much treated as subservient members of the household, and that is, I think, by design. I mean, I think you
are they
almost.
happy? I mean, just genuinely curiosity. Are the women like? Do they look unhappy? You think? Because we don't have many Amish around here. They started coming in northern Vermont, but
I mean, but I think I don't know. I mean, I think if you got one, I mean, I would say two things. Number one, I think a lot of them, if they had an opportunity to speak off the record and weren't going to get discipline when they got home, would tell you that there is some displeasure there. I think second of all is where this is the only life you've known. You, I think you can find happiness because you really aren't comparing your lot in life to something better. And I think they probably spent a lot of time talking about those damn drunken English folks that are out, um, like they see the stuff that we deal with, and the kids and stuff that are out running the streets and doing bad things, so they can reinforce that at home. So I don't know. I don't know how happy they are. They certainly probably have parts of their life that are better than ours. They see each other a lot. They work together. I mean, you talk about working together as a family unit. That's it. I mean, you go past on a Saturday morning and they're all out there. Mom on down to the youngest baby is out in the garden doing things. And if that's your dream, they're doing it.
well, it's not like I mean, for me, it's not like oh well. I mean, it's easy to romanticize it, and I get that, and I don't, you know, uh, I just think whatever, like, if they're able to have a situation where they work together and support each other, and if they're relatively happy, it seems, I mean, we're talking about, are the Amish wives happy? And it's like, most stay-at-home mothers in large Catholic families are not happy, whether they're, subservient to their husbands or
Are any of us really happy? I mean, that's sort of the human condition. I think we're always,
no, but I mean,
you know,
there's like, our society, our culture is not doing well at all. Like, we're going down basically. And so we've got factories, and we, centralized our, productivity, and men leave the home. Now women leave the home, and we work for other people, and we have a ton of stuff, but like, nobody's really, on average, it hasn't really been worth it, is what I'm saying. So it's been worth it for people who get really rich off of it, I guess. But for everybody else, it's just sort of.
I would venture to say that you compare the most average modern family today to the more of the affluent families of the 1800s, and those people would trade their lives for us in a heartbeat. I mean, I think it's really easy to overlook. I think it's really easy to take advantage of, or just take for granted the luxuries and benefits that we have, just being able to drive places and heat our homes, cool our homes. I mean, I think there's a lot of things, a lot of luxuries that we have that in the past they didn't have out of necessity, right? And so I think that I do think the romanticization thing is a real problem, and it only takes a generation or two to lose that. They talk, wealthy people, they deal with it all the time. It's always like by the third generation, they've grown up and they don't value the money. They don't value what went into building that wealth, and the kids generally turn out to be complete delinquents, right? It's just the way it is.
So my mom's father was the one who grew up on the dairy farm. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have running water when he was little. And I don't know if his father was an alcoholic or something, but one of the stories goes that, like, they left like a whole potato crop in the field one year and just didn't harvest it. And my grandfather was so bitter and disgusted, and he ended up doing really well in life. He had a couple businesses, but he was so, kind of went away from the whole. They didn't leave the church, but they didn't have a big family, and they didn't. I don't know. I think he felt pretty good about what he did with his life. He ended up having a lot of material wealth, or a decent amount. And but at the same time, most of his grandchildren are not in the faith anymore, and it's not like, well, if you're not Catholic, you're going to hell. But the culture's been completely lost, and like, there's drugs and hedonism and just immorality, and also just a shrinking lineage, like a family tree that's getting smaller. So it's a trade-off, and I'm just saying it's not worth it. And I think maybe now with the internet and all these technologies, it'll be easier, but that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to try to get away from working outside the home as much as possible. But it's easy for me to say because I've never had a job that was that great. I've had a couple okay jobs, but none of them would have been like careers that I would brag about, or they're easy to give up. So
What's yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you and I have similar questions and motivations in life. I'm just and I came I would say I came as close to as a lot of people to kind of I came real close to being able to do the life that you're talking about because I have over time built up the ability to make a decent living that could be done largely remote. And um I have a 20-acre piece here that we could do a lot of things together. um but I just I f- it doing what I think you have in concept and what I've had in concept is much more difficult than I would have thought it would be. And it takes a lot of effort and sacrifice by the family to make that happen and keep that happening. That I sometimes wonder if that is worth it. Like that was sort of what I found that we were losing so much as a family trying to live this ideal life that we found living a slightly less than ideal life was actually more conducive to our family. Just to give you an example, so like yesterday, um, yesterday I was out of town. We spent the night at a hotel in a water park with the kids, because I can now if I want to. And whereas in the past, maybe we wouldn't have, we'd have had to come home and take care of cows, and then I'd spend Saturdays cutting firewood and things like that. Um, but I spent a lot of time with my kids yesterday, in the car. We went up and visit our daughter in college and actually had a really, really fun time together. I was in the pool with my kids. I was not doing those things when I was trying to have the whole homesteading life. Like we didn't have the time or the money. Now I would have the money but not the time to do those things. And I think is the part of this that I think needs to be taken care of, because I think it is time together, that quality time together, that is important. And I'm not sure for all of us that just toiling away, um, in on your property or whatever on the weekends necessarily leads to a better family life. That's my I think my only point I'm making here.
Yeah, I get that. I just saying, kind of like with the other issues, it's like it's a problem. It's a real problem that you're talking about, but it has to do with attitudes, which are basically, you know, kind of contagious, I guess I would say. And I don't really know exactly what the answer is either. On the other side of my family, we had my dad's family. They had a huge, not a huge, but a very successful construction business, and he had 8 sons, and the goal was that it would be passed on, but everybody had their own dreams and issues, and it didn't work out. And I think like a few hundred years ago, that wouldn't have happened. Like there was a sense of duty to take up the family trade, whether in the guild systems or you had your place. And today we have this. I don't know. Like nobody would expect their kid to do what they did. I want my kids to have to follow their dreams, or follow their heart, whatever it is. And it's like, um, you know, our dreams and desires and stuff like that are kind of often arbitrary and sort of, I don't know. I'm not going to say narcissistic, but like, there's not always, in my opinion, it's like you're 20 and you think you want to be like a marine biologist or something, and then reality hits. And I just think that if we had a situation where the attitudes about the work that has been given to somebody were better in so many ways, you know, with wives, husbands, children. I think it'd be much more satisfying. So yeah, I'm not claiming to have the answer, but I do think a lot of it is just in our heads, like, and individualism and stuff like that. I just don't think we have all this technology, we have all this wealth in our society now, and it's not. We have more despair, more weirdness, like that. Whether it's transgenderism or just really weird, unhappy people or even just normal. I mean, people aren't. A lot of the young kids, they're not really dating that much now. I mean, like Gen Z, they're not acting normal. They're not acting like a healthy bunch. And
Well, I sometimes wonder about that, and I don't know if this is true or not. I mean, I think it's really easy to look at our present environment and look like, well, the crazy is just much more prevalent than it was in time past, and maybe it was, but I don't know that. I don't think it means that the issues underlying all that didn't exist. I think people dealt with them in different ways. I'm a not to be too political, but politically, I'm I'm not a pacifist, but I'm definitely a non-mili I'm an anti-interventionalist. I mean, I think peace is always desirable over war, and I think it's really easy, for example, to look at today's world and think, "Oh my gosh, we are the most," never it's never been more dangerous, whatever. But if you actually look at things and compare it to history, it's the most peaceful time in history, in terms of the wars, and people dying in battle. I mean, it's true. It's like it's demonstratively true that the world is generally more peaceful, safer now than it was in, let's say, in the 1950s. Then it was normal for 17-year-old boys to get shipped off and get blown apart in war, right? That was
yeah, but
that was
wouldn't you
pretty
rather
normal.
have your son get blown up in some random war than like become a tranny or you know
Oh, I mean,
or honestly even just sort of do nothing with his life, like, because, and I'm not saying that's going to happen to your family, but it's happening to a lot of families, like, and suicide, like there's more suicide than there really should be by a lot, like, depending on how healthy your family is, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of people overdosing on fentanyl laced drugs, and it's like,
do you think drug use, though? Do you think drug use is really higher now than it used to be? I mean,
oh yeah.
I think there was a lot of walking alcoholics back in
Yeah, but
our
they
grandparents' days.
functioned.
Oh,
They fell asleep.
uh,
They slooped over a cow, and then they woke up, and then they kept going about their work. It's not even really, oh, they're doing drugs. They're wasting their whole life like doing drugs. Because you're not even allowed to work when you're on drugs, really. Vermont is really bad. I don't know what it's like where you are, but you can just go and get drugs from the government, pretty much, like, and they say it's not, oh, it's something so that you take so that you don't crave heroin or something, but they're really jacked up on it.
I, I think the problem. I think what you're missing here maybe is I think I don't think the Amish community, isn't doing drugs and alcohol so much. I mean, it is part of the culture, but it's um you just don't have the opportunity to. Like, I think a lot of these problems, yes, I think a lot of these problems we have, even even the stuff we talk about on the other channels, like, my wife and I talk about that too. These are musings of people that have enough time and money to worry about these things. These are not problems that, let's say, Catholics in third world countries deal with because they're just trying to make it through the day. I think I think these are consequences, negative consequences of being prosperous. Like, prosperity does come with a consequence. I don't think the I don't think the answer is to blame prosperity or try to remove prosperity. I think, as Picken is saying in the comments, is to redirect and take advantage of the prosperity in a more positive way. I would I would much rather try to reinvent and better utilize what we have today than to kind of go back to the way things used to be because somehow we think our lives are better then. I mean, I just think on whole, more people can have a more fulfilling, better life with what we have available to us today than anyone could have imagined 50 years ago. That's my own personal feeling. Maybe I'm too optimistic. Maybe I'm too much of a Elon Musk fan, but I just think I've seen the change, like I said, from when I started this journey and became a parent 20 some years ago to now. I I would have so many more options available to me to provide the kind of life that I want for my family, a large family, now than I did 20 years ago. And I think we should I don't think we should be too so dismissive of that. I think I see opportunities more so than problems right now. That's my own personal feeling.
Yeah, no, I think we have the means to do what we're talking about. Yeah, and I think it's better than it's ever been in that sense. The the problem that we have to, yeah, there's like the sky's the limit basically. The big challenge is directing the family and directing you know having shared goals. You can't work together if you don't sort of share the goals, and if you end up feeling guilty about using, about sort of asking kids and your wife to do to live out what you sort of envision. If you can't do that, then those tools that we have now aren't going to be as very effective. And um,
Uh, I think in many ways, well, let's say us husbands and fathers have had. I think we are in many ways least affected by a lot of these changes because we can go to the office, we go to work, and we can spend a good chunk of our day just toiling and laboring like our dads and granddads did, making a living. And then you come home and have dinner with your kids and read to your kids. You go to bed and you go up and do the next. I think the moms and wives have a much more difficult thing with kids. Just
oh yeah,
unless you're going to like unless you're gonna like keep your kids from having the internet. I mean, that's like you could take some pretty draconian approaches to these things, but and we deal with it ourselves. We have when our kids get to a certain age, they'll usually get like a Kindle of something that they can read and play games, and you're always in that. Those are problems that we didn't deal with our older kids because we just didn't have that when they're growing up, and so I think the challenge for wives and mothers in a special way to deal with these new things that you have to deal with raising kids now is much more pronounced than it is for us if we are the primary breadwinner and we're out working, because I don't think it necessarily is something we battle to the degree that they do.
yeah. That's why we shouldn't. That's why we need to be home. That's
I,
why we
I
need to be there.
yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, I think for me, homesteading has become a little more of a broad category, and it shouldn't just be, we're living off the land. I mean, I think
Right.
the family working in a collective unit, if it is, let's say our business is we are fabricating grills that we're selling around the country, or we are whatever I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, I'm totally with you there. And this is where I really think the internet and the ability to do things and network with people around the world it is actually presents an opportunity to do this in a way that's never existed before. So I very much agree with you there that to the extent that mom, dad, and the kids, if there is a shared enterprise, whatever it may be, sort of modeled after the old farm, that was just easy. Everyone was working on the farm. But if we find a shared enterprise, even if it's on a cul-de-sac in a suburb,
Oh yeah, no,
it's
everybody
possible to
can't.
do that, right?
People need to do what. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we should be able to make money doing different things, and yeah, I think maybe that should be your next project, Craig. It's like a Catholic Etsy or some sort of people are happy to support these CSAs, organic, locally
Hmm.
grown stuff, and the hippies, they're good about that sort of thing. They put down the money. I bet a lot of Catholics would do the same,
And
and
that's very much actually part of what I'm trying to accomplish with this channel, because I think there are, if anyone has the, I know we have people in our group that, do piano lessons online. Like, I think growing that network and helping people understand how they can do things, I'm all for that, because I think that is the answer. I really think that is the answer, is to take the opportunities we have, and maybe we can get it so that at a bare minimum, one of the parents can be home with the kids, and then maybe down the road both parents can be. I fully share that aspiration. I think, but I think we're in a very different world than Rerum Novarum, even, because I think that, now I think self ownership, having a entrepreneurial approach to the family is has so many more amazing opportunities than, let's say, fighting for better wages, better benefits at some big corporation. I think we're moving past that. I think the ability for a nuclear family to make a decent, good living for themselves that allows them to be working together, I think has never been more available to more people than it is now. And that's one of the things I want to share here.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Once AI and the robots take over, a huge amount of the jobs that are out there, and everybody sort of, I think it could get to the point where maybe it's a good opportunity now, but there's going to be a lot of work being done by technology soon that never was. A lot. And, I'm not sure. I don't really understand the economics enough to figure out what you would do with that, but I did listen to Rerum Novarum this week, and just I think that was written in the 1890s,
Hmm. Yep.
first you know big industrial revolution wave there, and just reminding. And I think that, the world has done pretty well with trying to keep, it's pretty humane workplaces in this country, and probably other countries are better than they used to be,
Hmm.
I would think. And there's not a lot of starvation and squalor, but the I think the family unit being able to operate, and the opportunity for the average person to feel like they can have a family. And as Catholics, we kind of do believe that a large family is sort of the result of following church teaching. I mean, we have all this technology, we have all this, all the means. It shouldn't be an issue. It should be easier than ever, and yeah, it's gotten harder.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, you know, why that is or how to fix that, other than, don't give into it. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two. I think there's two really approaches here, and I think Picken kind of, um, well, he's got two comments in a row, so let me show both of them. So, compact, walkable villages surrounded by farm and forest. We can all be Catholic hippies, I guess, and with communally owned commercial kitchens, farming equipment, media studio. Like, I I actually think that has some merit. Now, it's easier said, like that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges facing Catholics now, and my wife and I talk about this a lot. you know, the biggest challenge to raising a large family now, I think, is for the most part, most of us are sort of isolated. We don't have families and friends close by where if mom and dad want to just go away for a night, you can do that easily. Or mom and dad, it's there's no one there to watch your kids, or it really does take a village, I think, to raise a large family. So I think raising large families in sort of an isolated environment, um, even if you go to church, but like I said, if you're getting in a big 15 passenger van and you're driving 30 minutes to go to a TLM and whatever, that's all great on Sundays, but that doesn't help you during the week, really. And everyone's doing their own things.
Yeah.
So I think having a place like Pickens says, I mean, that was something I thought about long, and I'm still not opposed to it. I have the property that is sort of laid out for that, where you know, if you could have a communal space, not a commune, not a shared, but a place where families could, when you have graduation parties and stuff, you have a spot where you can have a gathering and afford to do it, or be able to do things together. Like I said, a recording studio, a place, because to have a house big enough for a large family is expensive, right? To have a 2,000 square foot or more house is very expensive and almost unattainable for a lot of us. Whereas if you had something
Well,
like this where
I
the
mean,
kids,
the system is, get whatever you can from the market. Whatever someone will pay, take it. When it's not designed to nurture families. And yeah, if you had, yeah, a commune is not an ideal situation, and private ownership is important. I think that was mentioned in that encyclical quite often. Is
Mhm,
that
mhm.
you need to have private ownership. You need to be able to pass on your wealth, and there's nothing bad about that at all. But it's not meant. The wealth that we have is not meant to. It's not supposed to just be a magnet for more wealth to siphon out of the system whatever we can. So uh, I think we should. There should be more of those little villages around. Um, but
I I agree. Um, Although I think it's becoming more and more difficult for us to have true physical villages. As much as I would like that, this is where I think virtual villages of sorts, like I said, I think so. One way is to, we all gather in a similar area and we have a communal space and we have people that can watch our kids if we need to go do something, or figure out a way to generate enough money so that you can, you know, pay someone to watch your kids once in a while. Like we have a nanny, not a nanny in the conventional sense, but we have a college age girl that comes in and watches our kids, 2 afternoons a week, right? When I work and my wife teaches part time, that's money well spent for us. I think is, my wife is the primary caregiver for our kids, but she has things she does outside the home, and that has been very beneficial and fruitful for our marriage and our family, to just have someone, we trust, come in and help watch the kids once in a while. For a lot of us, that's just, for a long time, that was something financially not available to us, and it's a sacrifice now, but it's something that I can do. So I think to me, as much as I like the idea of living in a cob village somewhere, I've
yes,
seen enough of life to know that for most of us, finding a way to make more money is a more viable solution to having the kind of life that we want than to, live something closer to the Amish. That's where I think I'm at. That's where the practical side of me and the life experience tells me that for most of us, like I said, for me, um, working a couple of hours in the morning on a Saturday morning, and then hey kids, let's drive over and let's spend a night at the hotel and a water park is a
so
better. use of
Problem
my
is
Saturday.
you know when you start out, you kind of need that village when you're 25 and you have two kids. You don't. It's not good to wait 25 years to build up that income so that you can finally start to have an easier, you know, to take some of that stress off. It should be built in the whole time, you know.
I
And
would agree if they would agree. I mean, that's
well, but the thing is, you don't start. Everyone can't start out with the income of a 45-year-old. You know, it's going to build up. So those early years are some of the hardest years. I think they're all, I guess, kind of hard. But like,
yeah.
you can't just spend your way out of it when you're starting out, unless, I mean, maybe if everyone in the Western world could afford that, I'm sure there'd be plenty of people that we would be sort of exploiting somewhere else who would be in much worse shape. I don't think that. I think you need to have an actual physical, you know, infrastructure and support network.
It could be. I mean, I'm not. I don't disagree. I all I say is I live in an area. We live in a really nice area of the country where people have come in and kind of had this homesteading idea, and we've been in reasonably close proximity to each other with a shared goal, Catholic values, and people. You know, life just happens, and people come and go, and so I think if we had a place, let's say, like if we had a place where a newly married couple could come and live for a while and have the first couple of kids and save some money, learn some skills, and have a community, and then let's say branch off and settle down, maybe that's a better thing. I mean, I do think you're right. I mean, those first few years are really, really tough. I think it's easier now. I think in many ways it can be easier now starting out just because there are so many possibilities and options available to make 45-year-old money early on than it was when I started out.
Money, like I don't really. I'm not very smart about it, but it just seems like a joke. I mean, the more money we make, if you have a huge number of people making more money, the prices simply go up. Um, so I don't know. It's like picking yourself up by the bootstraps or whatever. It's, you know, you can't. I don't think that ends up working out. Am I wrong about that? Like if every
Well,
20-year
money's
old
the
starts
currency. I
making,
mean, creating value. Like I can create more value for the market in 2 hours sitting in front of a computer than I can sitting 2 hours out in my garden. And that's the point I'm being. I mean, if you're providing value to someone, I mean, they could pay in Bitcoin and chickens for all I care, but you're providing value to someone in a way that you can't provide value. Just like my ability to provide value to someone, if I'm going to dig a ditch for someone, I can dig a ditch with a shovel, or I can dig a ditch with a mini excavator. I'm going to be able to dig a lot more ditches with a mini excavator than the shovel, right? There's that scalability factor there. So money is just the way that we, uh, you know, exchange stuff for value, but it's ultimately the creation of value that is necessary. I think that you know.
I'm just saying that if the average 22-year-old starts making 10 times as much money, the prices of things are going to go up by a lot because they're going to have expendable income that they're going to use. And I have a hard time. I think the third world, you know, model is probably more actually realistic. The the value that they offer and what they get out of it. I think when you, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we have to be oblivious to those concerns, but I think I think those concerns may be more in theory than in reality. Like, here, let me give you an example. So, as part of the work that I do, I hire someone from the Philippines. She's a college educated woman in the Philippines. Um, and she does work for me from across the globe. I pay her um,
Beans.
$7 to $8 an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
I could never. I can't. I can't even buy it. I can't even hire a teenager here in the U.S. for that. She's doing college level work for that money, and you know what? She is living very comfortably there. That is really good money for her in the area that she's at. So she's happy, and I'm happy, and together we're creating a lot of value. Now, maybe eventually, if everyone starts doing that, the bottom falls out somehow. I don't know, but then
Right,
I
because
think
now
I think a new solution
our
will present itself at that
daughter
point.
will be competing against, like our kids are going to be competing against Filipinos who
Uh,
can buy, the groceries that week for like $10. You know what I mean? If it won't take long, and that's just going to everything's probably going to level out, and it's like,
I maybe I just think I think I think we should deal with today's problems with the opportunities that today presents itself. And I think today, for the most part, paying someone else to do something more quickly and efficiently and better than you can do it is something that we need to seriously think about doing. My my quality of life went up dramatically once I stopped trying to do everything myself, um, and I think we need to do more of that. And I firmly believe that if we all do that, and yes, then the market readjusts, then there will be a new solution that is, generally speaking, good for everything. I think we need to get. I'm a what's the word I'm looking for?
an optimist.
Well, I'm an optimist, but I'm not a I mean, I just think I think there's plenty of wealth for everyone. I don't think there's a finite amount of resources. I think there is. I think there is a way that we could all do well together if we are more collaborative and work together and then deal with the new problems they come along. It's like, when the car came out, everyone is like, oh my gosh, we have people dying in car wrecks. People didn't die in car wrecks in the 1800s, right? We have people die, and there was people that lost their jobs as a result of the car because we weren't
The
raising
car, the car
horses, right?
ruined. The car ruined us, Craig. It,
Yeah, that's
it,
where the
it
Amish they
community.
get hauled around in cars. I mean,
Yeah,
so
they do because it's easier to get to Walmart to buy a chainsaw file, and it's convenient and everything. But overall, yeah, all these little communities are just little. In Vermont, the average town is like 1,000 people, and people just go and they sleep in their house. They don't they don't know each other really. They go to the larger towns and work, or the cars were horrible. Yes, now we can do kind of go wherever we want, but like we're not any better off. Like it, that's what
I
I'm saying.
just
All this like, oh, we can keep getting make things better, and now we can do more and this and that, and it's just accelerating, and it's actually very dissatisfying, and you end up just with a VR headset and like it's the Matrix. It's not.
live stream with people on a Sunday morning around the country. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, let me.
No, that's good and everything, but like most people are not trying to figure out the world's problems on a live stream right now. They're just, playing a video game or watching pornography or something. They're not, so there's some good, but it might not even be any good because we might not figure it out. But you know what I
I
mean?
I I get you. I get the third world kid that's trying to um, pound pieces of steel into car parts
Yes.
isn't going home to watch porn at night. Yes, okay, if that's the goal,
Yeah,
yes, but
no,
I
but what
mean, really?
if the kid's like doesn't ever end up with like a mortgage, and he lives in a very simple building, and he marries some girl that he grew up with that in an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like compare that to now, and these kids they turn 18, they're like, I don't know what to do. I think I want to be a veterinarian, and oh, actually, no, I don't. After I go to school for it, and I'm just sort of
Well,
everything's expensive, and I don't know. You know, people are lost. Even kids from families that are fairly pretty high functioning families, they're just like they don't know what the hell to do with themselves, and it's like it hasn't really been panning out. That's what I'm saying.
I just think the culture hasn't caught up to the technology. So we're trying to apply 1980s ways of doing things to
Yeah,
2024,
well, that could
2025.
be somewhat.
You know, I think so. I mean, I think we do have to be more adaptive and whatever, um, to the environment. I mean, so I don't think we're ever going to totally figure it out, and maybe we're not supposed to. But I'm just telling you. I mean, if the I, I'm sort of optimistic that I think there's maybe never been a better system to raise 10 kids in than it is now. I mean, there's definitely disadvantages.
Better spread the word.
Well, let's we have a podcast, we have a YouTube channel for that. I mean, so I do think. I mean, I think there are opportunities now that we just, but I think it does require us to sort of reinvent a little bit how we look at life. And I think that change tends to happen more slowly than the change in technology, I think is the problem.
All right, I'm sure you have to go, Craig. I gotta go.
Okay,
The
I
firewood.
do. All right, thanks guys. We'll talk to you next time.
See you.
Yep.